Happy Monday, everyone. This is Martha with Nature Niche, and I am very excited to be out at one of Midland's newest nature areas, the Eagle Ridge Nature Area, and that's next to Stratford Woods. And I'm out here with Lisa Williams from the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service. She's a contaminant specialist, and she's going to tell us about this really cool project.
Thanks, Martha. Yeah, we're really excited about Eagle Ridge Nature Area. And as Martha mentioned, it's right next to Stratford Woods, shares the parking lot if you want to come down. And we worked on this project, a whole group of agencies, along with Dow Chemical and some local organizations, to create this nature preserve. And this is one of many projects that are coming out of a settlement that the state, federal, and tribal agencies reached with Dow in late 2019. And this is different from the cleanup that Dow is doing related to legacy contamination stemming from their operations at Midland. The purpose of this settlement was to get to restoration of natural resources, to compensate for losses over time from those releases, and to benefit natural resources and the public's use and enjoyment of them. And so this Eagle Ridge Nature Area is the first of these projects that we're opening to the public. It's open now. There's a series of trails in different habitat areas here at the park. But before we talk about that, I just want to go through the folks that are involved. I mentioned Dow Chemical. The trustees for natural resources that negotiated with Dow were from the state of Michigan, the Michigan Department of the Attorney General, the DNR, and it started out as DEQ, but it became EGLE, the Department of the Environment, Great Lakes, and Energy. The organization that I'm with, the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, which is part of the U.S. Department of the Interior, and then the Saginaw Chippewa Indian Tribe of Michigan. In bringing this project together, Dow and the trustees worked with local organizations for their expertise and input. And that included Pheasants Forever, the Arnold Center, who built some of the bird and bat houses that you'll see out here when you come out to visit. The City of Midland, who is now helping run the area and will be the future owner of the area as well. And then the Chippewa Nature Center, with all their great expertise at doing habitat restoration and running nature preserves. So let's talk a little bit about some of the things that you can find out here. So when you come into the big parking lot here at Stratford Woods, in the main parking lot, there is where we're standing here at the corner of that parking lot, where there's this interpretive sign. And this is a trailhead for getting out on the trails. There's some other places you could enter at the end of Ridgewood Drive, along Waldo, down here in the neighborhoods by Hancock Drive and J Street. And then one of the most obvious places is right up here, but that is for handicap access. There are handicap marked parking spots there. We want everyone else to come down here to the main parking lot. Plus there's bathrooms down here. And from here you can get out on this pollinator loop trail, or the pollinator trail with its loop here. And the reason we're focused on pollinators in this area is that we had an opportunity to remove some invasive shrubs, open an area up, and do some plantings of species of grasses and forbs that are really important for pollinators, like our native bee species and butterflies. There are a lot of wetlands through this nature center, low wooded wetlands primarily, not the big cattail marshes that you might first think of when you think of wetlands, but wooded wetlands. So there's going to be some parts of the trail in the spring and maybe sometimes in the fall that you might want some knee boots to get through, but there are a whole series of boardwalks out here. So most of the time you should be able to walk the trails with just regular running shoes or hiking boots. So you'll see those wooded wetland areas going through the center of the property. Down at the south, there are some openings, some sandy, more grassy openings. And in one of those openings, we've placed a bat box and several bird boxes, and there's a bench there. So it's a really nice area down here to sit and just watch the wildlife and sit in a quiet, peaceful place. Up here is one of the most unique and surprising features of this nature area. There's, when this area was glaciated, there were some ridges and low areas that were left behind, and there's a high sandy ridge up in this area, and some huge old oak and beech trees up there. It's another place where there's a bench where you can sit up high and look down over these wooded wetlands. And in the early spring, it's particularly great. There's a bunch of birds that move through there. You can sit up high. The trees haven't leafed out yet, so you can see out into these wooded wetland areas where it is starting to green up. And then finally, there's another set of wetland trails up here. This is one of the areas where the trails can get a little wet where there aren't boardwalks. So you might not always be able to do this loop. But there's a larger wetland that does have cattails up in this area. And as part of the work out here, we put in a culvert to help that wetland function as a larger wetland. It was cut in 2 pieces by a road that went back into one of these sandy areas that's more open and where we've got some more bird and bat houses. So there's a lot of different choices, a lot of different ways you can work the trails, a lot of potential to see wildlife in the area, whether it's birds or squirrels and chipmunks. And I was out here one morning and there's a raccoon walking down the trail. And if you're into ferns and trees and grasses and forbs, there's all kinds of things to look at out here. One of our partners on this project is the Saginaw Chippewa Indian tribe of Michigan, and they worked with elders in their tribe to look at some of the history of this area relative to the tribe's involvement. And so some of the things that I learned from this is that there had been one of the treaty reserves right in the Midland area, the Little Forks Reserve, and another one a little bit downstream that's near one of our other projects from this settlement. Even here at Eagle Ridge, some of the street names are named after tribal members, including Ashman, which is the entry road for this area. One of the things that the tribe contributed to this project was some historical photos of activities in this area that the tribe continued to practice, even in the area of photography, including hunting and trapping for pelts of beaver, muskrat, mink, and otter, as well as their work with constructing black ash baskets, which they used for a variety of purposes and continued in daily practice for quite a long time, even after the city of Midland was established. One of the other contributions that the tribe made to this project was providing Anishinaabe language elements for different features. And so as you go through the nature area, you can look on some of the interpretive signs, and you might find this symbol again, and the Anishinaabe word for something like the frog, and a little bit of an explanation about that word and its background, because a lot of times the tribal words are more like action phrases than are a simple translation of nouns. So it's really fascinating. So I urge folks when they're out here to take the opportunity to look at this panel here and get familiar with some of the history of the area, as well as this sort of scavenger hunt for the Anishinaabe language elements and some of the interpretive signs out there.
So we're out along the pollinator trail. We are having a great time. There's all sorts of swamp milkweed coming up, and we saw an adult monarch flying in the background. We are finding all sorts of monarch instars out here. So this path's definitely the place to come to practice being a citizen scientist and reporting on monarch eggs and larvae and the adults. So I want to show you a couple really quick. We had a very teeny tiny one. All the way up to a big 5th instar that'll be a chrysalis soon. And I am sure throughout the year, as these wildflowers are blooming, you will be able to see all sorts of neat pollinators. So out here, we're at the intersection of the wetland and ridge trails at Eagle Ridge Nature Area. And this is another restoration project site?
Yes, so in this area, there was a lot of autumn olive, which is an invasive shrub, and also glossy buckthorn. And so as part of the work to improve the nature area, those shrubs were removed. And this was an area that was not seeded. We wanted to see what native species would come back on their own. And this is an area, not surprisingly, we're going to have to come back and do some more work. You can see that right here we've got autumn olive growing from the cut stumps. So the control work wasn't completely effective, but we'll keep monitoring and doing some work and coming back and seeing if, and there's spotted knapweed out there as well, which is another non-native plant. So there might be some additional work in this area to keep shifting the balance toward natives.
Yep, I just saw a black swallowtail, and it looks like you added habitat structures as well.
Yes, with assistance from the Arnold Center that built the boxes. We have a bat box up there in a nice sunny area to keep the bats warm when they're roosting, as well as some bird boxes for species like black-capped chickadees and eastern bluebirds and perhaps tree swallows.
Nice.
We're here near the intersection of the Northern Wetland Trail and the Ridge Trail on Eagle Ridge. And this is one of the interpretive signs that's out here. You can find different interpretive signs scattered around on the trails. This one shows tracks of various animals that might be found out here, particularly when there's mud around on some of the trails. You can look for those. This sign also has one of the Anishinaabe language features, and it has the word for squirrel added onto this sign. We're out on the Ridge Trail at Eagle Ridge Nature Area, and this is a really neat feature. We didn't have to do any restoration here. We just brought the trail up onto this ridge, which is a feature of the glaciers that were here in the past. And the other neat thing about this area, besides just being up on this ridge and being able to look down into the wooded wetland, are these huge trees that were here and grew when there wasn't a lot of competition from other trees. So there's some really big oaks out here, and down the trail a little bit farther, some really big beech trees.
I hope you've enjoyed this video tour of the Eagle Ridge Nature Area in Midland, Michigan. I hope this Labor Day you get to go outside, visit a local natural area close to you, and think about sort of human influence on the landscape over the centuries, and maybe come up with some projects for invasive species control and habitat improvement that you can be involved with in your local area. Take care and have a good week.